Members of the public before now is that she believed her place was with her grandchildren. However, today's walkabout, where she's met some of the many hundreds of thousands of mourners who are now flooding into London, may have gone some way towards showing that the House of Windsor does acknowledge the national grief.
In London, the Al Fayed family has released security camera video from the Ritz Hotel in Paris showing the last movements of Princess Diana and Dodi Al Fayed. It also shows numerous appearances by the driver of the car in which the princess died.
These are the last known video images of Diana, Princess of Wales, and Dodi Fayed. Also seen is the bodyguard who survived the crash, Trevor Rees-Jones. They were taken by security cameras at the Ritz Hotel in Paris, owned by Dodi's father, Mohammed Al Fayed. At a news conference in Mr. Al Fayed's other business, Harrods department store in London, his press spokesman, former royal correspondent Michael Cole, talked reporters through the video. The main reason for releasing the film appears to be to defend this man, the Ritz security chief Henri Paul. Mr. Paul was the driver of the car in which he and the couple died. French coroners have said that he was well over the alcohol limit. But the suggestion from the edited extracts of the video is that he appears so often on the tape that he did not have time to consume a large amount of alcohol before driving. That controversy will continue, but the public will remember these images as the last video of Diana, seen here leaving the private dining room in the Ritz with Dodi. Outside the front of the hotel, a crowd, believed to be photographers and onlookers, had gathered around the cars the couple had arrived in. Unknown to them, Diana, Dodi, Henri Paul and bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones were waiting inside the rear exit of the hotel for another car, the fateful Mercedes 280, to appear. When it does, the couple get in and drive away at normal speed. There are no photographers in the street, leading the Al Fayed family to challenge the claims that Henri Paul taunted them as he drove away.
And we will be returning to that television broadcast made a short time ago by Queen Elizabeth in London.
He's saddened, and there have been tributes from other religious and political leaders praising her devotion to the poor, the sick and the dying. Despite her frailty, she's been due to attend special prayers tomorrow for Princess Diana.
Mother Teresa had suffered serious heart complications in recent years. In 1989, she was fitted with a pacemaker and 2 years later was treated in California for heart disease and bacterial pneumonia. She was in hospital again in November 1996. She suffered several heart attacks and underwent surgery to unblock coronary arteries. Late this afternoon, doctors were called to her side, but nothing could be done. She died at around 5 o'clock this evening. Among the tributes to her this evening, Pope John Paul said he was deeply moved and pained by her death. Mother Teresa met Princess Diana 4 times, and on Friday in Aid in Calcutta said she intended to offer special prayers to her on Saturday, the day of the funeral of the Princess of Wales. President Robinson met Mother Teresa twice in 1993 in Ireland and when the President visited Calcutta. Mother Teresa devoted her entire life to helping the poor. She leaves behind an organisation with over 4,000 people in 600 homes across the world.
Mother Teresa's devotion to alleviating the plight of the world's destitute won her acclaim as a living saint and earned her the Nobel Peace Prize. She handed over the reins of the Missionaries of Charity in March because of her fragile health after 47 years of service to the poorest of the poor.
Mother Teresa was born in Albania in August 1910. At the age of 18, she came to Rathfarnham in Dublin, joined the Loreto Sisters, and learnt English to work on the Indian missions. At 19, she went to Calcutta, and after 21 years teaching there, she formed the Missionaries of Charity, which now boast more than 4,000 sisters and brothers worldwide. But it was her order's work among the lepers and poor of India especially which made it famous. Members of her order cannot own more than the people they serve. In 1979, receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, she articulated her philosophy.
Let us all together thank God for this beautiful occasion where we can all together proclaim the joy of spreading peace, the joy of loving one another, and the joy acknowledging that the poorest of the poor are our brothers and sisters.
In the 1980s, Archbishop Sean Brady, then stationed in Rome, began saying Mass for the missionaries of charity. He frequently heard Mother Teresa address her sisters.
I was amazed at the great strength of her convictions and how she conveyed to them her own belief in God's love for each one of us and her service to God, her respect and reverence for God present in the world, present in the Blessed Eucharist, but also present in people. How she sees Jesus, not just in the Blessed Sacrament, but in, as she says in herself, in the leper to be washed, in the drunkard to be listened to, in the crippled to be walked with.
On the political stage, she was consistent and formidable. But in 1995, in a public letter, she unsuccessfully implored the Irish electorate to vote no to divorce. In Washington, in the presence of the pro-choice Hillary Clinton, she pulled no punches on abortion.
Abortion is a great, great evil.
This tough talk earned her enemies. A British television documentary questioned her association with right-wing leaders like General Pinochet of Chile.
What we are doing is putting a case against her sainthood, against her saintliness, and saying that she is a right-wing Catholic politician who is being used by that agenda.
She would say that she responds to need. I don't think she knows she's into studying the political ideology of the people whom she serves, and perhaps, of course, at times other people may have taken advantage of that. Somebody asked her once, how does she cope with all this suffering and the lifting human debris off the streets? She said, I pray.
In 1997, Mother Teresa stepped down as head of her order and introduced her successor, Sister Nirmala, to Pope John Paul in the Vatican.
Politicians and heads of state around the world have been paying tribute to Mother Teresa. Here, the Taoiseach Bertie Ahern described her as a shining light to all the world. President Robinson said Mother Teresa reached out to all and tried to give them dignity. President Clinton described her as an incredible person.
Churchgoers in Dublin were shocked this evening at the news that a woman who had fought for the weakest in society had slipped away.
Oh, Mother Teresa we'll never have anything like her again. For the poor, what she did for the poor, and we'll never see anything like her again.
She didn't mind touching people that had diseases and complaints, and she extended the hand and helped them and took them off the streets.
Well, I think she was a great woman altogether, as far as I'm concerned. I think she'll be canonized right away, my opinion about her, because the life she lived, God would help us, I don't know.
For those who work with the disadvantaged in Ireland, a living inspiration has gone.
I suppose for me her life radiated an expression of Christianity that you rarely find. And I think she did two important things for the world. One, she challenged us to see that the world of greed and wealth and individualism and utilitarianism is the same world as the world of poverty and oppression and marginalisation. But she did another thing too. She inspired the world in the sense that the kind of destitution which she experienced would drive other people to despair, but it drove her to serve those people and to attract other people to serve them. But also, she made that world visible to the rest of the world in a way that nobody else could make it. So she brought the most brutalised, the hungry, the diseased, the oppressed, the totally rejected people into a central stage in the world in a way that nobody else, to my mind, has done.
Sister Stan with her tribute tonight to Mother Teresa. Well, joining me now is our religious affairs correspondent, Joe Little. Joe, Sister Stan was saying the church tonight has lost someone who made it relevant to the most in need in the world, to those, the very destitute, the poor and the dying.
And in the most inhospitable environment, after all, in India, which has a very small Catholic population. She went there as a Loreto nun, trained, as we know, in Rathfarnham. But she innovated. She taught for 20 years in the Bengali school in Calcutta.
and decided, no, this was not the kind of service that the people of India needed. They needed somebody on the streets looking after the castaways, the poor, the lepers, and she founded the Missionaries of Charity, which now numbers over 4,500 women and men, and which does this work. It looks after the specific needs of a developing country like India.
And that work will continue and continue to be an example.
Yes, and I think it's important to point out that she said that poverty was the world's greatest problem, but the second greatest problem was loneliness and neglect. And in a week when people are experiencing pangs of great loneliness and sympathy with children who they feel would not get the protection of a mother, here is somebody who was a beacon in saying, not just to give bread to people, but to give them companionship and to give them real, genuine attention. And I think she has been a beacon, and obviously more than 4,000 people who follow her way of life believe so as well.
What about in more recent years, her support for the unborn and her championing of pro-life campaigns and pro-life causes around the world? That won her many new supporters, but also won her enemies as well, didn't it?
Well, she knew that was going to be controversial, and despite her taking on people at the very highest levels, for instance, of American society, she became one of the 5 people to be awarded honorary American citizenship by the White House. So that tells you how much her opponents on an issue like this admired her and saw some great truths in what she was saying.
Joe Little, thank you very much for that. Now, there we'll take a break, but still to come on tonight's 9 o'clock news. Thousands of people line the route as Princess Diana's coffin is brought to Kensington Palace for her funeral tomorrow. Join us for that and more in just a few minutes. Hello again. Thousands of people lined the streets of London tonight to watch in silence as the body of Princess Diana was taken to her home at Kensington Palace in preparation for tomorrow's funeral. Earlier, her sons, William and Harry, accompanied by their father, Prince Charles, saw her coffin at the Chapel Royal in St James's Palace. In an unprecedented television address to the nation, Queen Elizabeth described Princess Diana as an exceptional and gifted human being. She was among members of the royal family who met some of those who'd come to pay their personal tributes to Princess Diana.
For the thousands of people who've come here, this was the first sight of the princess's coffin since she was brought back to London last Sunday evening. They watched in silence as the hearse moved slowly down the Mall on the short journey to Diana's home at Kensington Palace. Earlier today, her 2 young sons, William and Harry, with their father, came to see the thousands of floral tributes that have been piling up and read the messages and meet the people. For the young princes, it must have been the most difficult moment of their short lives. The Queen did the same thing in an attempt to assuage some of the trenchant criticism of the royal family for appearing remote at a time of national grief, and this evening she broadcast live to the nation.
She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness.
At Westminster Cathedral, Cardinal Basil Hume said Requiem Mass. In the congregation were Diana's mother, a recent Catholic convert, and the princess's 2 sisters.
We prayed too for her 2 sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, for Prince Charles.
It has now been announced that Diana will be buried on the Spencer family's Althorpe estate in Northumberland and not in the crypt of the local church. Her grave will be on an island set in an ornamental lake where Diana and her children had helped plant some of the trees. The Spencer family hope that by burying Diana here, it will take the pressure of constant visitors away from the small village nearby and allow her children to visit her grave in privacy. The Queen has let it be known that the reason she hasn't met members of the public before now is that she believed her place was with her grandchildren. However, today's walkabout, where she's met some of the many hundreds of thousands of mourners who are now flooding into London, may have gone some way towards showing that the House of Windsor does acknowledge the national grief.
Well, joining us now from London is Brian O'Connell. Brian, even at this remove, there seems to be the most extraordinary mood, tangible, apparent on the streets of London tonight.
It is. We've had some scenes of extraordinary emotion. This is the first time most people will have seen the coffin, except for that brief glimpse when it came off the plane from Paris last Sunday evening. And when it was brought by a hearse for the short drive to Kensington Palace, people were openly weeping. I think it is but a foretaste of what we're likely to see tomorrow when that funeral procession starts out from Kensington Palace and comes down here behind me to Westminster Abbey.
And the royal family all this week behind the walls of Balmoral, the Balmoral estate today, making these extraordinary appearances among the people, meeting those who've been mourning and wishing to make their own and pay their own special tribute.
Yes, I think the fact that the Queen came out today, met the people, the fact that the two princes did, has gone a long way towards making people feel as if, well, the royal family are human and they do acknowledge the grief of the nation. It's been a very difficult time for the royal family, as it would be for any family in such circumstances, there's no doubt about that. But the people who met the Queen today say she was crying, she had tears in her eyes. She said to one woman, apparently, the most important things now are William and Harry, the two children. And I think what the royal family have been trying to do up to now, in the face of this criticism, is try and protect these two young boys. In the week they lost their mother, from this huge amount of publicity. Tomorrow at the funeral is going to be a tremendous ordeal for them.
Brian, you mentioned Queen Elizabeth's television address. How far do you think that particularly has gone in meeting the apparent demand of ordinary people that she be seen to be with them in their grief and their sadness?
Well, the Queen, it was never going to be a very personalised television address, so in as much as the Queen, and with her personality, it has gone a long way to showing the human side and the sort of grief that they're suffering. And the most important thing I think she did today, was that she actually paid tribute to Princess Diana. The short statement we had from Buckingham Palace at the beginning of the week, shortly after the death, didn't pay tribute, and a lot of people didn't like that. They thought that the royal family should have paid some tribute. Today she did. She said what an extraordinary human being she was and what a good mother she was. And again she stressed the importance of looking after Princes William and Harry.
Brian O'Connell in London, thank you very much indeed for that tonight. More than 1,000 Irish people are travelling to London for tomorrow's funeral. Flights have been booked out until early tomorrow. And the books of condolence in Dublin and around the country have now been closed.
The railings outside the British Embassy in Dublin ablaze with colour as thousands continue to leave flowers and messages. The books of condolence here were due to close yesterday, but remained open until this evening as the crowds continued to queue. 15,000 people signed the books here and tens of thousands more in other centres around the country. The books will now be collected and sent to Kensington Palace next week. The British Embassy has admitted amazement at the massive wave of emotion generated here. At Dublin Airport this evening, hundreds gathered to watch the live broadcast by Queen Elizabeth.
For those who remain.
More than 1,000 Irish people are travelling to London to be there for the funeral tomorrow morning. The rush began last night, but all flights to London from here at Dublin Airport and the other Irish airports are fully booked until early tomorrow as mourners continue to fly out.
I thought she was really, really nice, very lively, brought the royals kind of more up to date, I thought she was great. Charity work and very fresh. We just happened to plan this weekend, but we will be there, because we're staying on Oxford Street, so it's passing down Oxford Street, but it'd be good to sort of be there for it, because it's very sad.
She's been part of our lives since she got married, and I'm a great fan of hers, and I think it's nice to be there tomorrow for her.
What did she mean to you?
The world.
It's been reported from Paris a short time ago that 3 more photographers have been charged with manslaughter in connection with the crash in which Princess Diana died. Meanwhile, the Al Fayed family has released security camera video recordings from the Ritz Hotel in Paris showing the last movements of Princess Diana and her companion Dodi Al Fayed. It also shows numerous appearances by the driver of the car in which they were travelling.
These are the last known video images of Diana, Princess of Wales, and Dodi Fayed. Also seen is the bodyguard who survived the crash, Trevor Rhys-Jones. They were taken by security cameras at the Ritz Hotel in Paris, owned by Dodi's father, Mohammed Al Fayed. At a news conference in Mr. Al Fayed's other business, Harrods department store in London, his press spokesman, former royal correspondent Michael Cole, talked reporters through the video.